The Wind Cap, written by Jane Yolen. Let's read. There was once a lad who wanted to be a sailor, but his mother would not let him go to the sea. Child, what do you know of sailing? She would say. You are a farmer's son. You know the turn of the seasons and the smell of the soil, but you do not know the sea. Now, the boy, whose name was John, had always obeyed his mother. So he went about his farm work with a heavy heart, but did not again mention the sea. One day he had been walking behind the plough. He all but ran over a tiny green turtle on a clod of dirt. He picked the turtle up and set it on his head where he knew it would be safe. When he was done with ploughing, John plucked the turtle from his head. To his utter surprise, he found that it had turned into a tiny green fairyman that stood upon his palm and bowed. I thank you for your kindness. Tell me your heart's desire, and I will grant it to you for saving my life, said the fairy. John bowed back but said nothing, although his heart yearned to go out to the sea. He did not express his wish. The green fairyman could read a heart easily, so he said, I see you wish to go sailing. John's face answered for him. Let's continue. Since you put me on your head like a hat to keep me safe, I shall give you a different kind of cap in return, the kind sailors most desire, a cap full of wind. But there is one warning: no human hand will ever be able to take it off. Then, with a blink, the fairyman disappeared, leaving a striped cap behind. Young John put the cap on his head and ran home to tell his mother. No good will come of the wind cap, she said, but the lad would have none of her cautions. The very next day, putting on the sailor's cap, he ran up to the sea. On seeing a ship anchored near the shore, he requested the captain to take him along. Thus began his first ever sea voyage. Well, the wind cap worked as the fairy had said, but that one condition prevailed. Now, that was both bad and good. It was bad because John could neither take his cap off before his captain nor at bedtime. And it was good because neither could he lose the cap nor could it be stolen from him. Since it was wind that sailors called for, and wind that John could supply, he soon became very popular. When he twisted the cap, he could summon the east wind and the west wind. He could also turn it to call both the north as well as the south wind. The captain would therefore never part with his prized sailor and let him ashore. For a year and a day, young John did not set foot on land. He saw nothing but the churning of the waves. Soon there grew in his heart a strong desire to see the land. Let's continue. Oh, let me go ashore just for one day. He begged the captain when they had sighted land. He promised he would return, but the captain was unmoved. However, John could not stop dreaming of the land. One quiet afternoon, he lay fast asleep and fell to dreaming again. Unknown to him, the ship stood offshore from his old farm. In John's dream, the seasons turned rapidly, and as each turned, so did John in his bed. Consequently, the cap on his head twisted round and about. It called up a squall from the clear sky that hit the ship without a warning. The wind had been whirling about the boat, tearing the sails and snapping the spars. "It's his fault," the sailors cried. They shouted in anger and fear and tried to rip the cap off his head. Well, they were unsuccessful, for it was a fairy cap. They pulled it and twisted it. And so the squall became a storm, the mightiest they had ever seen. The captain ordered his men to bring John before him. In anger, he grabbed him by the tail of his striped cap, twisted him thrice, and flung him out to the sea. But the winds called up by the cap spun the ship 3 times around. As John went under the waves, the cap came off his head. Soon the storm stopped, and John swam ashore. The cap followed him. When he got to the land, John picked up the cap and ran home to his mother and farm. Again, in the winter, when the snow lay heavy on the fields, he began to dream of the sea. John went to the wardrobe, got out the fairy cap, and stared at it for a long moment. Tucking it in his shirt, he ran out to the field. He placed the wind cap under a stone where he knew the ferryman would find it. Then he left again for the seas. For the rest of his life, John spent half the year on a ship and half on the shore, till at last he owned his own boat and 100-acre farmland. From then on, he came to be known as Captain Turtle, for he was as much at home on the waters as he was on the land.